Hello, everyone. It is talking about one of my favorite subjects, and that is the gospel according to Jesus' teachings. If you love me, take up your cross and follow me. It is the gospel of poverty, which is poverty can be interpreted several different ways. There's the poverty of, in spiritual terms, mind you, now, in spiritual terms. There's the poverty of non attachment, where you are alone, isolated with yourself and God. You love God and God alone. So, in a sense, your non attachment is part of poverty. God is number one. Love God with all your heart and soul and mind. And don't be attached to the love. It's like the love of money. It's not money that's evil, it's the love of money, St. Paul said. Don't be attached to making money, to gaining wealth. Don't be attached. There can be a person who has very little money, but the money that they have, they're attached to it. They hold on to it like it was the most important thing in life. That's very bad. That's that means they're not in a state of spiritual poverty. Okay, so that's about attachment. The interpretation of poverty as attachment or non-attachment. But then there's another poverty, and that's the poverty of suffering. When you're suffering, you're poor. You're very poor when your body is suffering. And I mean, if God touches your body by touch, there's a saying, God has touched me. And the saying, it's means, the interpretation is, God has touched me with pain. God has touched me with pain. In the story of Job in the Old Testament, the devil went to God. This is metaphorical. This didn't really happen. You understand? It's like a metaphor. It's like somebody's imagination. The devil or Lucifer, Satan, went up to God and said, that Job, he's a just man. He's a good man. But he hasn't been tried. He hasn't been tested. And if he's tested, he might not be so good. And God gave him, the devil, permission, supposedly, to test Job. And then there's a list of all the things that went wrong. But then God always said, but don't touch his body, which means don't attack his body or give his body terrible pain or terrible illness or terrible injury, disability and all that. Don't do that. So the devil tested Job and let calamities occur. I don't even remember what they were. I read stuff in the Old Testament so long ago, very long ago, and I don't pay too much attention to it most of the time. But he had a lot of bad things happen. He lists those things. And St. Anne Catherine Emmerich said that it was not all at once that it happened. He gives it to you. It's like you sit down with somebody and talk to them at a bar, and they'll give you a list of things that happen, but they don't tell you that those things happen over 20 years. And you think, oh my gosh, that poor guy or girl. So the things that Job describes happen over years. And he endured them. He endured them. And he was still righteous. And he was a good person still. So then the devil went to Now I hope I'm not. I hope I'm remembering this right. Then the devil went to God in somebody's imagination. Who wrote it? The person who wrote it. I don't know if this was Job that wrote it or somebody else. And then he said, yeah, he's been okay with all these different things that happen, and he still behaved himself and did the right thing and endured it and everything. But if I if something happens to his body, he's gonna fall apart. He's not gonna be righteous anymore. He's not gonna love you anymore. So you gotta let me test him by touching his body. And somehow God gave him permission. Now, you and I know, you and I know that once your body is afflicted with something serious, it's game over. You could lose your money, but you still have your health, your body. You don't have to. Well, yeah, I know some people jumped out of windows when they lost all their money. I know that. I know that. But most people don't. They could lose their money and they'll hold themselves together and keep going because you can always earn money again. But when something happens to your body, your health is your wealth. I had an episode last night. I mean, I'm an old lady. I've had health problems, all kinds, and I've had arm pain on and off, and I didn't know where it comes from. Once my left arm started hurting so badly that shoots, and I figured it was from carrying heavy packages. When I shop, when I feed wild animals, they eat 32 pounds of dry dog food a day and 10 or more pounds of other foods every single day. And I have to shop in the summer, in the spring to autumn. I have to shop twice a week and fill up the car with many, many, many packages, and I carry them. I was carrying them on trips from the car to the house, and they're heavy. And so I figured, I guess I pulled out my muscles, and the left one was hurting. I had these pangs of pain, and so I was very careful, and I got a cart, I got a wagon, and now I don't carry as much. So I just go with the wagon. I put stuff in the wagon from the car, and then with the wagon I go to the house. So there's a lot less moving heavy packages. And then I also stopped lying on my side because I'd either lie on my left or my right side. I never lay on my back. And so I imagined that was exacerbating the pain because the pressure. So I stopped that for the first time in my whole life that I can recall as an adult. I taught myself to lie on my back, and that was hard. That was hard. But within a week of forcing myself, I did it, and now I'm okay with it. I'm okay, and I can only move a little bit to the left or to the right, not to press on my arms. And then, okay, so that little by little by little, over 6 months, it doesn't hurt as much. It hurts a little bit. Then I started getting strange pains where my right arm would start hurting and it would feel like I don't know what's wrong. And then I would stretch my back and I would bend over forward, the way Bruce Lee would stretch his whole back, the way that martial artists stretch their back. And I would do that to the count of 100, and that pain would stop because that pain was weird. It felt like I was going to be paralyzed, like the arm or would be paralyzed. Okay, so I was able to get rid of that pain by the stretching. Well, last night I got 2 attacks of that pain. two attacks. So the first time I did the bend over exercise, and it didn't seem to help that much. So I did it for like 200 count, bending over forward, relaxing, my back and my neck, because I thought maybe my back or my neck, maybe my neck is affecting my arms. I didn't know what it was. Or then I thought maybe it's my heart because I have a bad heart. I didn't know what it was, rather than the packages, because the packages started 6 months ago, and you don't know what the heck's going on sometimes when you have pains, you don't know why. So I'm trying to make a point of how how it affected my mind. So let me finish. Let me be patient. Be patient. I'm going to explain how when your body goes downhill, your mind, how badly it's affected. Okay, so then finally it went away, the pain in my arm. And it's a weird pain. The pain is bad, and then it feels like I think my arm's going to be paralyzed. And then the left arm hurts a little bit too, but not as bad. Now, this happened after half an hour. I'm sitting there trying to fall asleep. I'm praying. I keep repeating my prayers when I have insomnia. So it started again, the same thing, same exact thing. So then, once again, I do the stretching. And I do a lot of stretching. And after quite a while, it goes away. And I'm baffled. This has never happened like that, like 2 times in a row. Never happened like that. Okay, so then it happens twice, which never happened before. And then starts happening a little bit, not real bad, but a third time. And now I'm really spooked out. And then it goes away. And then as I'm trying to sleep, I suddenly see the zigzag not in my eyes, because my eyes are closed, but I see the zigzag in my brain, and I open my eyes and I see the zigzag. Now that's an ocular migraine. I learned that when I was at an eye doctor once. He had charts. It doesn't hurt, mind you, there's no pain, but they call it an ocular migraine. It starts out as a zigzag, a small one, tiny one. Then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger it's in your brain. You try this eye, you see it. You try that eye, you see it. And in the end, it gets big so that it just disappears from your vision. And I've timed it, and they last 15 minutes. Now, when I first had it, I was completely spooked out, had no idea what it was. But then when I found out there's a name for it, and they say they don't know what it's from. Well, it's from stress. A lot of things they say heart attacks aren't caused by stress. Let me tell you, they're caused by stress. I've had them from stress. Eventually, the stress will get you. It is your whatever. There's all different things, but some of them come. Maybe not all of it is from stress, but some of it is mine. Mine was exacerbated. Let's put it that way. It could be your arteries are clogged up, but you'll survive until the stress is so bad that bang, it hits you. Okay, so now another thing I had my echo is they find out what percent of your heart is working or not working, and my last echo test was bad. And so for about 2 or 3 hours, I was writing myself off. Okay, any minute now I'll be dead. I got 1 foot in a grave, 1 foot in a banana peel. But why do I feel okay? I mean, I feel the same as I felt for years. And then I figured out that echo test might be kind of flawed, because that day I was under incredible stress, some of the worst stress I've ever experienced, trying to get to a hospital for a test, when the directions they gave me, they sent me to the wrong hospital. And I'm driving and I got to drive. And I have a finding new place phobia, or highway phobia, finding a new place phobia. And I found it and I got it and I congratulated myself and I started walking to the hospital for the test, and it's the wrong hospital. And I don't know how to get to the other one. Well, God took over. It's a long story. I'm not going to explain it. God took over. I got to the other hospital in time. In fact, the lady told me I was a little early. I got there. I'm not going to explain how, but the grace of God took over. I felt God's presence. And when you know what they say, when all else fails, we're in the hands of God. Like this boat had a problem, and they started to have a serious problem, this boat. And the lady ran to the captain and says, Captain, what's going on? How bad is it? And he says, we're in the hands of God. She says, is that bad? Well, I was in the hands of God because it was that bad. And I didn't know how to get to the other hospital, didn't know how to get there, didn't know where to find. I was going to get a taxi, but I didn't know where the taxis were. I hadn't seen any taxis in a long time since they started Uber. There's not too many taxis around, and when they are around, they're usually around at night, around bars and nightclubs. But this was the day. But I got there by the power and grace of God. I got there. So the test came out bad, and there was another reason. I was chatting because I'm a motor mouth. So I started chatting with the lady giving the test, and I was told later that it's like blood pressure. If you take your blood pressure, you have to be cool, calm, and collected, because if you talk a lot and move a lot, your blood pressure test will show higher. So this heart test could have been higher for those two reasons, the stress and the nonstop talking during the stress. So then once I found that out, I wasn't as spooked out. But while I believed that that test was accurate, my life was over. I said, that's it. I'm done. I'm done for a while. For several hours, I thought, I'm finished. My life is over. My test, how long can I go on with a bad heart like that? How long can I go on? I thought it was improving. I thought the test was going to say your heart is better, but instead it was a lot worse. So I said, how long can I keep going like this? I'm a dead duck. Once God touches your body, that's my point. And that was a few days ago that I found out the results of that echo test. And then last night, I think the devil was trying to make me not do these videos because I'm reluctant to do these videos because after losing weight, I don't look so good in my face. I don't look good anymore. I lost a lot of weight and my figure is fine. And everybody's impressed when I go out and I wear nice clothes. And I bought a whole new wardrobe. And today everybody's getting fat and I got thin and I'm bragging on me. Look at me. And I pose when I go out to just people at stores, just stores, my grocery store and my dollar store. I go there twice a week. And that's it. That's the only place I'm going these days because I'm being a hermit now. I'm being a hermit, trying to see God face to face, trying to do what it takes to see God face to face. So I don't do much chatting, but do just I don't gossip or anything. I just go, just show them, I lost the weight, bragging on I lost. The fasting helped me. The fasting helped me to subdue. I heard that in St. Mary of Agrita's Mystical City. She said, fasting is an important virtue because it subdues the flesh. So it helps subdue my flesh. It was a whole year I've been on this. It's approximately, I'd say 1,500 calories a day maximum, sometimes 1,000 a day or 1,200 a day. And actually, instead of, I think I lost 10 pounds too much. So I might think about gaining 10 more, gaining back 10. I might think about that. I'm not sure because being skinny is such a luxury that I'm not sure, even though part of me doesn't look that good, like my face doesn't look that good because it's gaunt and I'm more wrinkled than I was. I look older than I was, but I still love being skinny. And you can't tell by here. Somehow the camera makes me look heavier, but and I go out and I look at everybody else getting fatter and fatter, and I look, hey, look at me, I'm thin. And the look some of the women give me, like they're mad, they're jealous, or maybe they're impressed. I don't know. They just look at me. A lot of people look at me startled because of the thinness, and the decent shape. Okay, that's not important. It sounds ridiculous me talking about things like that when I'm preaching about God. So now, but I'm bringing in life. I'm bringing in real life. It's just real life. We all have a real life, no matter who we are. You could be a saint and you have a real life. Most of the preachers and ministers don't bring too much about their personal life unless it has to do, well, okay, and this has to do with God. This has something to do with God. I'm trying to make a point about when your body is touched. So Job said, the devil, Lucifer, Satan, whatever, the devil, demon, evil spirit, had the permission to touch his body. And he was sitting somewhere just mourning and grieving. And I'm trying to tell you, when your body is hit, nothing can calm you down. Nothing can make you happy. Because it's the end. It's the end of life. If it's serious. Now, when I have these arm pains, I don't know what it is. Am I going to get paralyzed? Am I going to be disabled? Or am I going to be able to keep taking care of myself? Because nobody takes care of me. I don't have a husband or a boyfriend or a live-in. I live by myself. I take care of myself. I do all my own work, except part of my landscaping is done by, once in a while, I get a helper. If I need plumbing, I don't do my own plumbing, things like that. But I mean, generally speaking, the everyday work, everyday life, I do everything myself. All these things went wrong. I mean, I've had so many things went wrong that I think Lucifer was trying to stop me from doing these podcasts in person. Because people wanted to see me. They kept asking me, you've got to do this in person. And I resisted. I said, it's too much work. I don't like the way lights look. I don't like the way I look. I don't want to do it. And they said, you have to. Finally, in my dreams, I prayed to God. I prayed, help me, God. Help me to do them in person, even though I don't like the way I look. And God said, you've just got to do it. In dreams, God spoke to me in dreams. You've just got to. You have to. You can't just do audios, because look at Mystical City of God, the greatest book ever written besides the gospel, and it's getting hardly any hits because it's only an audio, and nobody knows, hardly anyone knows who St. Mary of Agreda is and Mystical City of God is, and it's so high, it's so exalted that most people don't understand it, they can't relate to it, so it's got very few hits. Like in 8 years that it's been on, the audio I'm listening to has got, I don't remember how many, but if it was some nonsense, they get thousands of hits a day sometimes. And sometimes within weeks and months, they get millions of hits. And it's something, some of it is nonsense, some of it is great stuff. But it's not exalted like Mystical City of God. It's not exalted stuff. Well, anyway, so then God reminded me of all the reasons I have to appear in person. And I was gonna wear real dowdy clothes, and I bought a lot of dowdy clothes, dowdy. And God said, kinda, not in so many words, but God was reminding me, remember Liberace? Remember Liberace? How he used to dress? He was like the first musician who dressed wild, like I'm dressed, for a guy that's unusual. But that's how he dressed. And he got a tremendous following. Now, he was a wonderful piano player, but people don't want to just hear the piano. They want to see Liberace with his outrageous outfits. So he was on for quite a while, and I used to see him a long time ago. This is the 50s. And somebody persuaded him to one week wear a plain suit. And one week he just wore an ordinary suit. And do you know that that week they canceled his show? And oh, was he angry? And he learned his lesson. Never again. I've got to be extravagant. I've got to be flamboyant. I've got to be, you know, no matter how good of a piano player this guy was, people don't want to just see the piano. They want to see him with his extravagant clothing. And then, of course, many, many others followed suit. I mean, musicians like rock and roll people and others, they always dressed with beautiful clothing. But then the guys got kind of outrageous, like with Elton John. He's a little bit over the top. He was one of the first to go over the top. And then Boy George, he was outlandish. I don't remember who else, but they're all, a lot of them, Prince and everybody, they started wearing really way out it became more and more extravagant. Like the Beatles started with a little bit long hair, like about the length of my hair. And then people got wilder and wilder and wilder. And because they were called the Beatles, people started calling themselves outrageous names. And the names got crazier and crazier and crazier. People latch on to a trend and they take it to the max. You know how that is. Okay, now back to the subject, the body. Besides Lucifer attacking me from all directions with problems, I can tell you 10 more things that happened that messed up my mind, where I couldn't concentrate on doing this. Usually I'm very religious about doing my work, but so many things come up and you can't even think straight because you've got to take care of that damn problem. Like my water pump broke. I had no water in the house. I'll just tell you, that's just one thing out of many. One out of many. And I couldn't find a plumber unless, and you know how they rip you off. You know that. They want $150 just to, and I'm in a poor rural area. $150 just to show up, even if it'll take 5 minutes to fix it. $150 to show up. And then they'll probably rip you off. And if it's a slight problem, they'll say, oh, you need a new water pump. And maybe one of them costs $75. They'll charge you $350 markup. They'll rip you off on the markup. I'm not going to get into that. Okay. So let's say God solved it. God solved it, and God solved it in 5 freaking minutes for no money. 5 freaking minutes, God solved it eventually. But for a while, but I accepted it. See, one of the poverty, I'm talking about poverty and suffering. One of the earmarks of poverty and suffering, being close to God, is to accept God's will and not to rant and rave, not to complain bitterly. Oh, how awful this happened to me, and 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 this, blah, blah, blah. Ramana, and I have even a booklet on it, Uniformity with God's Will, written by a saint, and he said that the absolute test of holiness is uniformity with God's will. And many, many saints preach the same thing. And in yoga, there's Ramana Maharshi, and Ramana Maharshi took everything just how it was. He had no ambition. He had God, and he wanted nothing else. He was always in a trance. He was so much in a trance that when they left him alone, you don't laugh, they had to put him in a cage because they were afraid he'd get into trouble because he was always in a trance. And his mom and his relatives were there, but then they had to leave him alone for a while. They had a cage because he was looking at God. He's in another world. He's in another world. That's Ramana Maharshi. Is one of my gurus. Ramana Maharshi. I learned from him non-duality, where you're not two things, God and you. It's God and you is one thing. He's one of the main proponents of that non-duality, Advaita. Some people pronounce it Advaita. That's the wrong way to pronounce it. It's Advaita, Advaita, Advaita. It's pronounced in Sanskrit. That's the Sanskrit word. So one time, later on, people gathered around him, and an ashram developed around him on this mountain called Arunkula or Aranunkula, Aranunkula, something like that. And they all gathered around him, and he had this ashram, with a lot of devotees, disciples, and his mother came, and people wanted to have what he had. And that's what they do in India. That's how it works in India. They form ashrams. So one time the ashram was robbed, and they stole all the money and a lot of other stuff. And everybody was upset except Ramana Maharshi. And they said, "Aren't you upset? They took all our money and many of our tools and things we needed, and our kitchen things we needed in the kitchen, our pottery and our silverware." And he said, "No, I don't. It doesn't bother me at all." They said, "Why not?" He says, "It was meant to be. God allowed it, so God permitted it. It was meant to be." That's uniformity with God's will. See? So, so when my water pump broke, it wouldn't work. It just stopped working. I called up a plumber, and he told me they'll probably need a new water pump. And I know how they are. I know I was going to get ripped off for at least $500. I said, "You know what? I'm going to accept this water thing. I'm not going to jump into it right away and get it fixed. I'm going to wait, and I'm going to get water from my creek and bring it to the house because I need drinking water. I need dishwashing water, and I need water for the toilet, to flush the toilet." So I had to bring many gallons of water every day from the creek. And the creek is clear, clean, clear water. It's running water. And it was running then very, very forcefully because we had just had a terrible rain, and the rain actually filled up my cellar and caused my water pump to stop. My water, it had a problem, and it caused it to stop. So I had easy access. I got myself like 15 gallons of water for everything. In 2 days, I had 15 gallons of water, and I said, I want to know how it feels to be, for a while, at least a little while, without running water, because I am going to start the new religion in a new community and village. Hopefully, I'm hoping, and I'm planning how to make some of the houses both on grid and off grid, and some of the dwellings will be completely off grid. And we want to make them comfortable, though. We don't want to make anyone suffer, but we want to be self-sufficient and self-reliant. So one of the things will be, you might have to find access of water other than running water, other than in your faucet running water. So I said, let me see how it feels to be without running water. So for several days, it wasn't bad. It was, the only problem was when you had to, I didn't want to cook my cat, his chicken, because it would grease up my pots and pans. It'd get so greasy I wouldn't be able to wash them with running water. So I said, I'll hold off on that. I'll give him tuna and canned food. He likes they like a certain kind of canned dog food, actually, a couple of my cats, and they like the canned tuna, which I mix with mayonnaise. So I said, I'll do that for a few days. I won't cook the chicken and get all greased up because it'll be hard for me to wash the grease without running water. I could do it if I have to with the water I have, but it'd take a little more extra work. So I said, I'm going to accept this without getting hysterical and without calling up the one friend I have that I used to share problems with. And I'm not even going to call the friend. I'm not going to tell anybody about it. I'm just going to deal with it and accept it. And I felt good about it. See, so accept, and when I had the other problems, like I told you, so far I have not shared the thing about my arms with anybody. Well, that only happened last night. The only reason I told a friend about my heart problems because she shared with me a couple of serious problems she had that she's really upset about, and I had to talk to her about it to help her. And then I shared my problem or my concern, and she consoled me, and I consoled her, and we helped each other. So when God touches your body, all bets are off because you can't be happy. If they tell you you got cancer, how can you enjoy life? At least during the time you're getting cured, you might probably, it might be a very small case, and you'll get cured and healed, and then you're cancer free for 1, 2, or 3 or more years, and you're out of the woods. You can enjoy life again. But when you're not sure, and when they first give you the diagnosis, your life isn't worth much, is it? In your mind. In your mind. So Job was sitting on a refuse heap somewhere, and he was complaining. His wife said, "Curse God and die." She must have been a very evil woman. And his other friends, the old elders, they all said, "Oh, blah, blah, blah." Nothing that they said was helpful or made any sense. And then the youngest friend he had came by, and he talked sense. And the young friend said, "Where were you when God created the world?" And he went into this long speech about how dare you question God's will? How dare you? How dare you say, blame God for a misfortune or get mad at God or get upset at a misfortune? And that's in the Old Testament before they knew the wisdom of the cross. But, some people have known about the wisdom of the cross even before Jesus taught us. These divine principles have been in existence during the days of Buddha, way before Jesus, and in the days of the Vedas, where they teach you to give up your ego. The Vedas, the ancient Vedas, which they say are 5,000 years old. I don't know how old they are. And then there's the Vedanta, which is the last Vedas. They're not as old as that. Well, they had these divine principles since the beginning of the recorded word, since the beginning of religion, since the beginning of philosophy or theology. They've had these principles of wisdom, spiritual wisdom. I'm sure the Wiccans had wisdom like that, but they've destroyed the Wiccan religion, so they're trying to piece it back together. Mr. Gardner tried to piece together his version of Wicca, Gardner's version of Wicca, and he tried to get it going. So we've got that version, and then there's the Dianic Wicca. I don't know where they picked up the pieces from that, but the Inquisition, they try to wipe out Wicca off the face of the earth. They murder the women I don't know how many. Some people say 9 million women. I don't know, but it lasted for 500 years. Could they kill 9 million women with the primitive technology they had in those days? I don't know. I don't know. But it was a lot of women. It was almost all the Wiccans. They killed almost all the Wiccans, the leaders, the women leaders of matriarchy. Don't tell me the Catholic Church is wonderful. Don't. Don't. Don't be beguiled and fooled by these wicked men. We need a new religion. We need a new religion. All right, back to when your body is touched, that is great poverty. But remember, when your body is touched and you're suffering, remember Jesus. Offer it up for the souls in purgatory and for those on earth who need grace. And for animals. We should love all sentient beings the way Buddhists do. All sentient beings, animals, people, as well as the souls in purgatory. Offer up your sufferings, unite them with Jesus and Mary and the cross and the thorns that Jesus carried on his sacred head, his sacred wounds, his sacred scourging, horrible, deadly wounds that they inflicted. How he survived. When I listen to Mary of Agreda describe what they put Jesus through, it is a miracle he stayed alive through it and died and passed out on the cross. In my opinion, he passed out, didn't die. But that's another sermon. We'll get into that another day. It's a miracle. It's a miracle that he survived to the cross, but all that they did to him. I can't describe it now. It would take an hour or a half an hour at least. Whatever. It would take a long time. A long time. What they did to him. No human without divine intervention could have lived through it all the way to the cross and either died or passed out, whatever you believe, on the cross. Nobody could have endured that. What they did to him was, I don't know, 10, 20, 100 times worse than what they did to other condemned persons. They murdered him over and over and over and over and over, and he did it for us. So when you are suffering, no matter what, mental, emotional, physical, and sometimes, I don't know which is the worst. I don't know. I don't know. Whatever, but the physical, it goes along with you get anxieties. You imagine, oh, I'm going to be paralyzed. Oh, I'm going to get Lou Gehrig's disease. Oh, these pains mean I got cancer. Oh, these pains mean my heart is going to give out, or I'm going to have a stroke and I'm going to be dead and I haven't done what I want to do in life. I'm not done with life. I'm dead. I got one foot in a grave, one foot in a banana peel. You imagine and imagine and imagine the worst case scenario. You have to have an operation. You imagine the worst. You imagine the worst. Your mind suffers with your body. Your mind suffers. Your mind. Your heart suffers. Your emotions suffer. Unite it with Jesus and Mary and all the saints in company with the holy angels and offer it for others. And that grace will go to them and it'll help you. All right, that's it for today. Amen. Go in peace to love and serve Jesus and Mary, and we'll see you next time.